Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about quarantining your discus, how to quarantine, how long to quarantine, and what meds I use. Alright, so discus are not hard to keep if you follow certain rules. Number one rule is any new fish that come into your home or fish room should be quarantined. Now, if you're going to risk it and put them in your main tank right away, you usually pay the consequences. Alright, so first I'm going to talk about how to quarantine. Many of you know that I've got these wild discus in about 3 weeks ago. Now they're going to go through a 90-day quarantine, and here's how I'm going to quarantine them. I'm going to first do a Metro treatment in the water and in my food. Some people frown on putting the Metro into the food. Now I use it as a supplement because what I don't want to do is have it become an issue down the road and then I'm treating again. Now food is very light on the Metro. It's more of the Focus, which is a bactericide, and then a ton of vitamins, vitamin C, and then I put a multivitamin in there and actually spirulina, and I mix it and they attack this food. So this is meant to really keep their immune system up while they're going through their treatments. Now I do it my way. Now there's other ways to do it. So I do a 7-day Metro treatment. I give them 7 days off, and then I do a 10-day Metro treatment. What I find is there's some resistance. Now, it's going to depend on what Metro you buy, too. There's a certain product over the counter that 3 letters, and you get them at Petco, PetSmart. Not very effective in my opinion. Okay, so I buy mine from actually breeders, most of them out of Florida, because most of the discus bred in high quantities, it comes through Florida, but also a lot of the wild discus too. So I find their Metro is a little better. Now on the food, I do treat with the C-Chem. I treat just a little bit in the food as far as the Metro, it's Metroplex, and then the Focus. But then I add that other stuff in there. And then I make my mixtures with regular frozen shrimp and then mysis shrimp. Now this helps clear out the gut. This goes into how long, okay? So I can do a Metro treatment in a month. I can do it in a couple weeks. I like the month because I figured that if there's anything coming through after the 7-day off, then I will catch it on the second round. And here's the thing, I do not treat my discus ever again unless I break my own rule and introduce a discus from the outside to an established tank. So I do not do that because once I put my discus through this treatment, there's no reason that I ever have to treat again. I know there's some people think that you have to do it like every 6 months. This is just not true in my opinion. If a discus stops eating, then I will go to my heat treatment and then maybe a little salt, because usually it's more of agitation in their digestion or their intestinal tract. So it's usually not parasites unless you've cross-contaminated or you've brought a discus in to the established tank. After I do that first treatment of Metro, I go into Prozi. Now Prozi's pretty mellow on them. It's pretty quick. It's just a couple days. I think it's a day or two. I have to look at the bottle. So I just follow and I buy Prozi Pro by Akari, or it's Aquarium Solutions. So I use that and then put that in the water. Now it's supposed to treat flukes. I don't know if it really does that, but it doesn't hurt. But one thing I have noticed, and it's very rare in the domestics, but I've seen it in the wilds over and over again, is tapeworm. So it does kick out those tapeworms. So that's why I go, especially with my wilds, I go into that Prozi. But I even do it with my domestics because I want to make sure that they're totally clean and I don't want to bring anything in and then introduce my existing stock. I'll let them go for a couple weeks. Now, on the wilds, I'm going to go through this on a 90 days. So they're going to get that first month, they're going to get a long rest, they're going to get a Prozi, they're going to get a rest, and then I go into the levamisole. Now, levamisole treats more of a roundworm, and it's just something that I find that just kind of gives that final exclamation point to prevention. All right? But here's the thing. If I follow my rules, and if you follow your rules and do not bring in discus, and I can't stress this enough with quarantine, guys, you have to really be disciplined at this. This means you're not sharing hoses with existing discus and then the discus that I bring in, own siphon hoses. Now I use PEX and then attach them to siphons, so those PEX are the only thing touching the water. And then usually what I'll do is use a separate bucket. So I use orange buckets for my quarantines, I use white buckets for my fish room. My suggestion is no matter what fish you bring in, give it a 2-week quarantine process minimum. Okay, 7 days is good, but I find that 2 weeks, if it's gonna kick in, it's gonna kick in usually within that 2 weeks. So that's just my suggestion personally, is 2 weeks minimum, right? Now, my rule is 30-day minimum. I do not bring in a fish and put it in an existing tank for 30 days. And what you'll see on these wilds is I actually put the tank at the very bottom so water can't splash down in other tanks. Now, this is not ideal for discus. Discus like to usually be about waist high and up. They don't like to be low like this. So you'll see I put these sight guards on there, okay? Now, these guys have settled in pretty well. And the problem with the location of this tank is it's right at the door that I walked in. Now, I'm kind of careful when I walk in, but what I've noticed is these discus have gotten so used to me already. Wilds are amazing. They are actually more durable, I believe. All right, so here you'll see that I have built out my breeding system. Now, the top tanks are done. They got water in them. I'm just checking weight, and I've kind of overbuilt this because I didn't want it tilting, because it's about 2,500 pounds, so you could park a car on this thing. But I've actually went even farther, and I believe it could hold up to probably 3,000 to 4,000 pounds, no problem. So I built a structure as far as top to bottom. I'm not worried about it, but what I did is I kind of went a little bit overboard side to side, because I just didn't want that wobble in there, because it's freestanding. So you see the top tanks are done. Those are breeding tanks. The bottom tanks right now, I'm resealing one. I'm repainting 2 that have blue from a purchase I made, and then 1 is a the brown trim, and I'm going to paint it black, just the front trim that you see. Now, that's not a big deal. It's just something with my OCD that I kind of decided that I got all black tank. All right, so I used to have kind of an easygoing process on quarantine fish, bringing them in, and then observing. I have stopped that. That's something that I've come up with the last year or so. Just what I have found is you can observe a fish for 2 weeks, a month. The rule is if it comes into my room, I treat it. I treat it once and it's done, okay? So it has to go through that treatment. Because all my other fish, I have so much invested in time and labor and just keeping these fish healthy that it just makes sense for me to do it. Now, here's one trick that I've learned is I treat before the lights go out, because from what I've read in some papers that the Metro is light sensitive, so it's a little more effective when it's dark. So as lights go out about 9:45, I put the Metro in the tank, and I feel like I'm just getting a better. It just makes me feel better that it's doing it in the dark. The first week I'm a little light, then I give them a break. And sometimes I'll go heavier on the food. And I know there's people that say you shouldn't do the food because you don't know what they're getting. So I'm kind of watching, and I'm not real heavy on the Metro on the food. But the second treatment, the first 7 days I'm a little sporadic. And then the last 3 days I just make sure that I'm putting, sometimes twice a day I'm putting that Metro on, just to give that final kick to clear them out. Is it extreme? Yes, but the worst thing that could possibly happen is a ping pong effect, where you put something all this time, a month into something, and then it doesn't finish the job, okay? Yes, it's extreme, I get it, but for me, it's for doing this for 25, 30 years, it just makes sense to go that extra mile. Now, there are some people that say the Metro is hard. Now, the Metro is hard on them if you have to keep retreating them. And what you're basically doing is you're causing an immunity to what you're trying to get rid of. Because you can call them superbugs, you can call them whatever you want. But the thing is you have to really make sure you do it once, you do it right, and you're done. All right, so update on the rams. Now, I had a ton of people contact me saying, you know, oh, I bred rams, or I know this guy's breeding rams. And the point of this was not to just breed rams, because I bred the Germans, I bred the golds, I bred the electric blues. And there's blue blacks and I guess celestials. There's all different kinds, right? These are the midnights, okay? So I was looking for someone who was breeding the midnights with the fry in the tank. Now, these guys went 14 days. And I didn't cut corners. I made sure they stayed in there, and I failed on them on day 6, and I failed on them on day 10. It's about a year of time I've put into this to make this happen. Was this to prove something to anybody else? No, this was to prove something to me that I could do it, but also I'm trying to get more paternal rams where they're gonna take care of, because if I can get these rams to do this over and over again, it's like an ATM machine really, because I can sell these rams at 3 months for 15 to 20 bucks each all day long. And right now I have about 50 of the blacks and probably about 40 of the golds. Now that's a rough estimate, but I would say I'm close to 100. The point of this is to make money. This isn't my business, this isn't something, but this room costs about $10,000 to $12,000 a year to run. Well, to set up. Now I don't know what it costs to run because it's my real first year in business with this fish room. Now I had a smaller fish room for a year, or about 2 years, and then I had my fish room in California for about 10 years, okay? But the one in California was designed, that was my business, and I made money. Now I did other things like construction and stuff like that too. But the reason why I set up the temporary room first, which I wish I would have took pictures, but I didn't. I wasn't on YouTube yet. I didn't really even think about it. But I wish I would have took more pictures. And basically I just built a little cheap 2x4 and I wrapped it with real cheap material. And basically what I did is first I wanted to see what I wanted to breed, and to make sure that I could breed it with the water here, and then how successful I was, but not only that, how I could sell the stuff and who was interested. And I was pretty blown away interested people were locally around me for discus in our club and online and stuff like that. So that's why I decided to go to this next level. Now I really tried a bunch of different fish because I wasn't sure about the discus, if I was going to breed those full time or not. So I went into like the Greg Sage, Odessa barbs, I went into the Gary Lang rainbow fish, I went into like all the L number plecos, which I'm still doing, because one of my passions that I've always had since I first got into it was discus, but also catfish like the Synodontis, Petricola, Lucipennis, all the L numbers. So that's something I do for me, but they are very profitable. But the problem with those fish is they take a long time to mature to breed. So I have to make that choice. So the discus right now are getting close. I would say we're about a month out from maybe starting to breed, but I'm not gonna make that claim because they have to do it, right? I can set up the conditions, I can do everything I need, but they have to decide when it's ready. I can only set up everything and make sure that they're good to go when they're ready. Now I do have a couple pairs interested, but I think one of the, it's gonna be up to the female when she's mature to drop those eggs, and I just don't think she's quite ready yet. All right, so you put your fish through quarantine. You've done all the work, the fish are clean, okay? Now the point is to keep them healthy. Watch this video here and it'll give you some tips on how to keep the discus healthy and signs to look for that if disease is coming, maybe you missed something, but also some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. Thanks guys, take care, you have a great day, bye.